fellow 2000 ModKit fans. Today we are going to review Jet Moto.
PlayStation was the very first console I ever owned, and I owned a bunch of games for it. Games like the high-octane racing of Gran Turismo, the amazingly 90s platformer Crash Bandicoot, and the thrilling open world of Driver. I certainly did play a lot of awesome games for it. Since all of those games have been talked about extensively, hell, I even did a review of Driver on my old channel, I would like to talk about a game series that I feel doesn't get enough attention. And since you've read the title, you probably know what game I'm talking about. Yeah, that's right, it's Jet Moto.
Filthy prank! Filthy prank! You just got pranked, bro!
Jet Moto was a series that was popular when it first came into the gaming scene back in 1996, but it has since faded into obscurity. And I should be the one to talk about it. Now, here comes the big fan telling me that I should either review Driver 2 or fuck off, because I have already reviewed this game back in 2011. But that review was a little,
horse shit!
And not only that, but I only reviewed the very first game of the series. And here, I'm gonna review not one, not two, but all 3 games. So turn on your hover bike, equip your helmet, and rev your engines, because here is the rise and the fall of Jet Moto. A little backstory on me in this game. Jet Moto was one of the first games I ever played, so I'll try not to let nostalgia cloud my vision, which will be quite hard. The year is 2002, and I'm the ripe old age of, 2. I had already had my fill of PC games such as Blue's Big Birthday Adventure, Tonka Construction, Lego Racers 2, and Spider-Man. My parents, knowing that I was an epic pro gamer, let me play their PlayStation. And one of the games that they let me play was, of course, Jet Moto. Jet Moto is probably one of the most, if not the most, nostalgic game for me. I remember being mesmerized by the absolute speed of this game, especially on the final stage called Nightmare. The game was developed by Singletrack of Twisted Metal fame and released in 1996. To give a little rundown on the game, it's a racing game in which you drive hover bikes across various terrain. The terrain ranges from swamps to oceans to even space. You have 20 different racers with unique stats, and some have better stats than others, but just because you have a racer with the best stats doesn't mean you'll always win the race, as player skill is just as important. Jet Moto has 4 teams in it. 3 of them have real-life sponsors, and the 4th one, well, I haven't been able to find any information on them whatsoever. These sponsors are Butterfinger, Mountain Dew, K2 Sports, and the made-up one, Axiom. Jet Moto's controls are somewhat hard to get used to, but once you get the hang of them, you'll have a fun time. The way turbo works in this game is pretty interesting. You have 4 pre-timed turbos, and you've got to figure out when the best time is to use them. Jet Moto, as I said before, came out in '96, and boy, does it show. You see, this is when 3D games were just starting to become a thing, and yeah, it definitely looks like it in some places. But other places, such as the snowy mountains that are great for drifting, look great. The music in this game is pretty great. Lots of surf rock that is pretty catchy and fits the tone of this game. I feel like Jet Moto is still a great game with a couple problems. I'll give it a B. With the success of the first game, and it selling over 2 million copies, Sony asked Singletrack to do the sequel, and they jumped on that train right away. Jet Moto 2 came out a year later, and yeah, it's basically the same game with some improvements. The game has less riders, which was done to smoothen the frame rate, and some might see this as a bad thing, that there are not as many racers, but I find it to be fine as now the races don't feel as clustered. Jet Moto 2 stages are great. I find them to be the right balance of difficult and fun, which the first game could sometimes lack. Another bonus is Jet Moto 2 has all the original stages in the game, which is great. All Jet Moto 2 stages are great, in fact, and the music complements the stages even better. Jet Moto 2's graphics are fantastic. Definitely a step up from the originals, and I feel that they still hold up to this very day. There are plenty of great little details in the environment, and on my playthrough I experienced very little pop-in. Really, Jet Moto 2 is an amazing game, and honestly, I don't know why I put it on my original top 13 favorite games of all time. Consider it a number 14 spot, I guess. In my honest opinion, Jet Moto 2 is fantastic, and it is an example of how sequels should be done. I'll give it an A+. So you may think that everything is fine and dandy for the Jet Moto series, but unfortunately, not everything has a happy ending. Single Track at this point lost the license to both the Twisted Metal and Jet Moto series, and they got handed over to 989 Studios, who brutally murdered both series. And unfortunately, Jet Moto 3 was the last of the Jet Moto games. I'm gonna be blunt with you guys. I don't like Jet Moto 3 that much. Gone is the cool comic book art style, and in comes a cheap CGI style. Yes, the graphics have improved, but everything else, besides maybe the music, is pretty meh. The music is fine, actually. It sounds kinda like a discount version of Ratchet Deadlock soundtrack, which is odd, seeing as this game came out 6 years before Ratchet Deadlock. And there are actually some licensed sounds in this game, but I'm not allowed to play it because YouTube will fuck me over. Anyways, Jet Moto 3's graphics are actually pretty great. This is probably one of the best looking PS1 games out there, along with Driver 1 and the Crash games. Jet Moto 3's bikes are way too fast, and oh boy, here comes the problems. It's either you're going at an almost uncontrollable speed, or you're not moving at all. The stages are fine, not as good as 1 and 2's, but still fine. One thing that has actually been fixed is the time that it takes to get back on your bike. 1 and 2, it felt like it took a little too long to get back up on your bike, and yeah, I'm glad that it got fixed. Jet Moto 3 also introduces a stunt track. It's fine, I guess. Another problem I have with the game is the fact that you can't access older tracks from Jet Moto 1 and 2. Why not? Was it the engine? Whatever. Really, this game wasn't as bad as I remember it being. It's still pretty mediocre, though. I'll give it a C. So, that was the Jet Moto series. It had a great start, but unfortunately it lost control and smacked flat on its face. I'd love to see a comeback of this series potentially in the near future. I know there were 2 cancelled games, and if they could somehow resurface, that'd be great. And I think now would be a great time for it to come back, with remasters being all the rage nowadays. Please, Sony, if you're listening, you are sitting on a gold mine. You need to make Jet Moto come back. Here's hoping for a reboot. If you like this video, please subscribe, leave a like, and tap that bell, and here's hoping for a Jet Moto 4.